I grew up in this town, and ever since I was a little boy, my dad would take me to the station.
I'm not a railroad guy. I'm not a born Burlingtonian, but I felt that I wanted to save the station. This is a unique heritage that we have in Burlington, and if we don't tell our story, nobody else will.
Hi, I'm Kimberly Calderbank for Community Cultures, and today we're at Freeman Station, visiting the friends here and learning all about how the community has come together to build this station. One of the incredible things about communities and how they even start is sometimes through passions and shared interests, and you can definitely see that here at Freeman Station. So Brian, I think one of the incredible pieces of Freeman Station was the entire Save Freeman Station project. The community really came behind you, and that's why we're ultimately here today. Can you tell me about that?
Well, in 2010, the city had passed a resolution to destroy the station because they couldn't find a location for it. Mary Mead Ward and Blair Lancaster called a public meeting in February of 2011, and about 65 of us showed up for that meeting. It was decided that we could save the station if the city would allow us.
I think it's incredible when we talk about the city we live in and the region we live in, and how when there's an ask and when there's a need, we really all come together and rally together, and that really speaks to where we live. What does that mean to you?
Well, I won't say I'm new to Burlington, but I wasn't born in Burlington. I made a lot of friends here, met a lot of interesting people, and we're always learning. Everybody's learning something about it because we have people who are interested in history, we have people interested in the railways, we have people who actually grew up on some of the farms that were here in the agricultural here in Burlington, and we have people who emigrated from Europe and their first stop in Burlington was the station. So there's a whole mixed group of people, and there's some really interesting stories, and I've learned a lot about the history of Burlington just being involved.
One of the incredible things, Ron, about the Freeman Station is the big history piece to the station and how the station was ultimately a community hub in the 1920s. Can you tell me about what we would have seen going on in this community hub?
Yes, well, to go through the history of the station, I'm going to have to go all the way back to the early 1800s when Burlington was not Burlington at that time, it was Wellington Square. It was a small community of not much more than 100 people on the shores of Lake Ontario. And at that time, transportation was very difficult. And then in 1853, the Great Western Railway was formed and started its railway, which ran from Montreal ultimately to Chicago and came through Wellington Square.
We talked about the action that this main room would have seen as a station. We would have had families coming and going, saying goodbye to loved ones. We would have had deliveries coming through. So what kind of action would we have seen in this room?
Well, in this station, you would have seen a lot of activity because with the advent of the railways, people could move, and they all had to move through the station. So it became the focal point of the community, so that anybody who wanted to go anywhere would have to go by train. But most importantly, immigrants came to Canada, and they came by train. So they would come by sea to Montreal, or Halifax, or St. John, New Brunswick, and then they would take the train from there to wherever their destination might be. And of course, all of Ontario was being settled, and so people came to Wellington Square, immigrants. So all the way up until the 1950s, 1960s, people with their first experience of Burlington, by that time called Burlington, would have been the railway station.
So Gerry, one of the incredible pieces to me about the Freeman Station is the fact that all of these artifacts have been brought to you by the community. People are dropping things off. Tell me about that process and what that's looked like for you since you've been open.
Well, I mean, that's the fun part of it. We get to see all kinds of different things that I didn't know about. As I said, this has become a magnet for people to bring things that's been in the family sometimes for quite a long time. As you'll look around the office here, this is 1906 in this office, so a lot of the pieces are from that period of time. Really, the station was more than just a hub of the trains. It was a means of communication. We had the telephone.
Yes.
This was the telephone in the area. And if you look at on the side here, there's a little telephone book. The station was number 2 in the telephone book. It was the telegraph office. And there's the telegraph keys that you see behind you over there. So, I mean, this was the communications hub for the local community.
So Bob, you've been with the Freeman Station for about 5 years now. Earlier today we were talking about the replica that's here downstairs of the Freeman Station. Can you tell me a little bit about it and how it's helped you along the way?
Sure. Well, this replica was built by one of our members, Bob Chambers, by hand. And it took him quite a while to do it. He built it on his kitchen table. And it's all put together from scratch-built materials. We're developing programs for grade school children, and those will be available starting in the spring. We should be ready to show students come in as classrooms just what it was like in those days here in Burlington, and a little bit about the technology of the railroads, how the steam engine works, and some further things about how the railways work today.
Being a volunteer here and being a part of the Freeman Station crew that you have here, what do you get out of being a part of this community here?
Well, I love it because I've always had an interest in the railways and the history of the railways. And this gives me a chance to expand on my passion. And same with a lot of our volunteers that have served here for over the years in putting this all together.
Ken, you've been volunteering here for about 5 years as well, and to me there's an incredible story about how the community came together and really helped the Freeman Station come to fruition. So we had a Save Freeman Station campaign, but then in the basement here, this is built by high school students and donations from the community. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Correct. The students from M.M. Robinson that were in the craft section have done with their teacher as their guide all the framing to their poured concrete basement and the drywall work. And they roughed in the control room at the end, the 2 washrooms and the furnace room. And that work was invaluable to us. Our heating furnaces, our air conditioning units were installed and donated to us, plus the excavation for the station was donated to us. A lot of very large work has been thankfully donated to us.
So Alan, you started with the station far before there even really was a station. So you've been with Freeman Station since 2010. To me, the station is an incredible part of what our community is all about. The station was saved by the community, the station was then built by the community, and the station is run and now inspiring the community. Tell me about that.
Well, of course. So we had a mandate from about February 2011 to save the station, which we did, to restore it, which we've also done, and then to repurpose it, give it a use to have. And so we've done that now, made it into a community center, a place, an attraction for tourism, and a destination. So we want people to come and enjoy what we've created here. It's not just an old station, an old building, but it's the story of Burlington, and it's a place that kids can come, they can touch certain parts of it and learn about it in real time. It's something they can take away an experience from.
One of the incredible things about where we live in the Halton region is all the really interesting and cool pockets of folks that have come together and created their own little communities. As we've seen, the Freeman Station is the station the community built. And if we're not telling their history, nobody else is going to. The group has come together, they've invested their time and their treasure and their talents into this station. The community has rallied behind them to save the station, and then they've shown up and donated amazing artifacts to the station. It truly is a community effort that's happened here. you.